Hello folks, how you doing? I needed to do some exercise for my arm, so I decided to put up a little video about something that happened earlier this week that I kind of want to talk a little bit about. Because I sort of alluded to it on Twitter on Tuesday evening, I believe, and has sort of kicked up a big discussion on Wednesday about preview coverage and streamers and YouTubers and traditional websites. And I kind of wanted to dive into it a bit because it's something that really has been sort of taking over a lot of my thoughts, especially on my commute to and from work for the past couple of days. Let me just give you the context first of all. So on Tuesday I represented GameSpot, myself and Andy Bauman actually, who's the dude you never get to see, who helps me make the point. We flew down to LA to play Overwatch at Blizzard. It was a sort of a general press trip where we go down. We just went down for the day because we had a bunch of shit to do. So we flew down super early in the morning at like 5 a.m. or something. We actually arrived early. We ended up going to a mall for 3 hours because we were 3 hours early for the appointment. So that's on us. But when we got there, we had like a little studio tour. We had an introduction with Jeff Kaplan about the game itself. He's the designer, fantastic person in the game design industry. And then we had like I said, a tour, and then we basically got to sit down and play Overwatch for the best part of 3 hours. They didn't have enough terminals for everyone actually, so there was a little bit of rotation, but mostly we were there to play Overwatch, and we played Overwatch, and then we hopped on our plane and got the fuck home. So it was myself and Andy from GameSpot. There was a guy from IGN there, there was a dude from PC Gamer there. I think there might have been somebody from Polygon because we were looking at the names on the like leaderboards in the game. Actually, there are no leaderboards in that game, but on the game sheet, the player screens. So I think there was somebody from Polygon, but then there was the group was about 30. I'm gonna say it's like 32 people maybe, and the rest of them were basically YouTubers or streamers, or most, some people are both. And what sort of surprised me the most was that the average age there was so much younger than I thought, because I understand that there are like prominent YouTubers and prominent streamers, and like I know a lot of them, and I've talked to some of them, and like I sort of have like internet proximity to some. Like I've done Total Biscuits podcast with Dodger and them, and I've been on JP's one, and like I sort of have an idea of a bunch of people within that community. But I think what surprised me the most was that these folks were like really, 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 really young, like the age I wish I was when I broke into the industry. So I'm 29 right now, and I think I'm coming up on my second year working in GameSpot US. Before that, most people didn't really know who I was. I worked at GameSpot UK for 2 years, but I've only been in the industry for 4 years, and I was trying to get in the industry when I lived in Ireland in a small little town for years and years, and it's why I moved to England to try and get a job, and it's eventually why I ended up moving over here. So I was kind of in this room thinking, like, you motherfuckers, like you managed to figure out a way of getting involved in the conversation that usually happens between developers and the big sites, or publishers and the big sites, like super early on. And I had a lot of emotions around it. Like, to be completely like transparent about it, there was a certain amount of envy associated with it, both for the fact that they were so young, and also because this is sort of part of a wider sea change. That there is the fact that there was only the big 4 websites or 5 or whatever sites there, and then a bunch of freelancers was kind of like, oh shit, like most of these people aren't associated with a game site, like they're doing it on their own, like that's kind of amazing. Like I was a freelancer for years as a web developer, and I kind of liked that, and I was kind of like, so that kind of aspect of it like made me feel a little bit left a bitter taste in my mouth. So I knew that I'm getting too emotionally attached to it, so I sort of sat back and I thought, okay, like what exactly is happening here? And there's kind of 2 things I want to talk about in this video. One is that I actually don't think that this is that new, and I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's a fantastic thing. Before I worked at GameSpot, I had my own website called Citizen Game. It's still up, citizengame.co.uk. It was basically a platform for myself and a bunch of GameSpot users to get good at writing, to get good at podcasting, to get good at making video, and it sort of acted as our like resume, our online resume where before only people had blog posts. Like, we could say we were associated with a website, and we had this website which had reviews we'd written and articles, and like we ran it ourselves, but like it was a way of showing that, I don't know, like we were serious and professional, and we could do the workload, and we could put in all these hours, and we did all this stuff while we had day jobs. Like, I had a 50 hour work week working as a web developer in London during this time. And Citizen Game was a tiny site, and we never really got invited to anything. I didn't really want to go to a lot of things because I don't like press trips all that much, at least the ones that those small sites get to go to. But I always remember going to, whenever we went to events, being like the small fries there. There was the big five, wherever they are. Say it was the UK, it was say, you know, PC Gamer, like OXM, GameSpot, IGN, and Eurogamer, of course, who are massive over there. And then there would be all like small sites. But our small sites were fucking small. Like, we had no reach. Like, Citizen Game had a podcast circulation of, like, I think it floated around 1,000 while I was there. We didn't get that much traffic to the site. It was a lot of the same people returning every day. The uniques were super down. Like, you're talking like a couple of thousand a day. Like, not that much. And we didn't produce that much content. So, like, we weren't a big house, like, farming, like, churning house full of content, or we weren't reaching a large audience. And like, none of the other ones were either. Like, most of these sites were pretty small. There were ones that were bigger than us, and there were ones that were smaller than us. There were podcasts that were bigger, and there was sites that are smaller. But like, we were really, like, all of us were such a, like, a massive delta lower than the big five, that I almost felt like, a lot of the time I felt like people were inviting us because we were games press, and because we were the type of people who were going to be working in the big sites next. And that happened with a lot of us at Citizen Game. Myself, I ended up getting a job. Timur Hussain, who now works for GameSpot UK, he got a job at CVG, at Future Publishing way before that. Joe Barron worked at a couple of games companies, and he went the other side. Like, a bunch of us did actually get work in it. And now CitizenGame.co.uk is still up and is still providing people, Jordan and a bunch of the guys, like, it's still providing people like an outlet to try and get their job if they can. Check out the site. I'm not involved anymore. I still pay for the servers and the domain, but I'm not involved anymore. But that was the way in, and that was the traditional way into GamesPress back then. So when I think about what I was just at on Tuesday, what it actually was kind of the same thing. It was the 5 big sites, and then there was all these other, like, what we used to be called like the shit munchers, right, who never got any traffic. But these people have traffic. So, like, some of them I recognized, some of them I didn't, and you just, like, you'd see usernames, you'd Google them and be like, oh fuck, that person's got 200,000 Twitter followers. Like, who the fuck am I? Like, oh my god, look at all the YouTube subscribers, I've got like 5,000 and change. And it, like, I thought it was awesome. Like, in a way I thought, like, this is what I wish it was like when I was growing up. Like, this would have been so much easier to be like, I was trying to break into the games industry growing up. And like, I'm not that old, I'm 29 years old. Like, less than like 5 years ago, I was still trying to break into the games industry, and the only means for me to do it was to build my own website and move to fucking London. Like, I had to move country and build a website. And this is before you could easily build it. Like, I was a web developer, so it wasn't too hard for me, but like, that's what the barrier to entry was. And even when I did that, nobody gave a shit. Like, there are people who still come up to me now and say like, oh, I used to listen to the Citizen Game podcast, but like twice a year or something. And that, like, I still find it amazing when they do. So that used to be the barrier to entry. It cost a lot of money, first of all. Like, I wasn't from a wealthy background, and like, I paid from all my own equipment, but it was shitty equipment, which meant it was time intensive, and there was a cost prohibitiveness associated too. So like, you really needed to fucking go for it to even have a chance at getting in. And even then, like, I got an offer from GameSpot after I'd thrown in the towel after trying to get in for like 4 or 5 years. So like, even then it was so difficult. But like, all these people who were in this room, all these fresh-faced motherfuckers, they were like, these big audiences, and they'd done it. And like, now they were trying to like learn the ropes, which was the same thing I was doing when I was like doing Citizen Game. I was trying to emulate my professional heroes, which was people like Kieran Gillen, like Jim Rosnall, like all these Rock Paper Shotgun folk, well, the PC Gamer folk, I guess, and then like Jeff Gerstmann and Rich Gallup and Ryan Davis and all those dudes. So like, it's weird because like now I'm in that room and I'm like, oh, you're doing the same thing except you've gotten the audience, and your heroes aren't those people. Your heroes aren't people who like wrote about games in this, like, these were real writers who ended up, like Kieran Gillen fucking writes like, you know, comic books. Like Gary Whitta, who used to write for PC Gamer, is writing a fucking Star Wars movie. Like Charlie Brooker has made Black Mirror and like Screenwipe and all these. Like he used to write for PCG as well, I think. Like, or maybe PC Foreman. I don't think he's PC Gamer. So like, so that was the other aspect of it, is that like they're following the footsteps of streamers and YouTubers, and they're following that dialogue, and there is a chalk and cheese, because I'm there sitting down recording, and the way I've been trained is like me and Addy sit down and we're like, okay, we're going to get gameplay for this, and this. We need to make sure we test out the 2 maps, blah, 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 because we're thinking about what we're going to make afterwards. And then everyone else in the room is like hooting and hollering and like having a good time and trying, like they're trying stuff out as well, but like they're not having this sort of like a very mechanical breakdown of like the way we're used to going to E3 and like doing 10 appointments a day and like trying to make sure we get all the information that everyone wants in the fastest amount of time, and we're super efficient. So it feels like a sea change, not because it's all that different, because I don't think it's that different to the way things always were. It was always this like different tiers or whatever, but the language that's happening on both sides is now completely different. Like there are the press people, and then there are the people who are streamers and YouTubers who don't follow the same traditions and like dialogue, and like what it really is like institutional knowledge. Like that's what it is to me, is that like the institutional knowledge of games writing that is passed down. And like I feel like even like me being 4 years in, like I feel like working at GameSpot right now, that like there's like me and maybe 2 other people who work there who like really remember that type of games press. Like a lot of the folks who work at GameSpot now, a lot of, like, mostly probably on the video team, like never really read about games that way, or like never really went to those sites a lot. So like even within, like that's what makes me feel old, is that not the grey hair, not the fact that I'm turning 30 in January, but the fact that like institutional knowledge, be it worthwhile or not, like it might be just me being like traditional or like nostalgic rather, that's fading away, and when it's being replaced by this other type of dialogue. And I think me as the person 5 years ago who was trying to break into the industry loves it. I think there's an aspect of me who works in the mainstream press who is terrified of it, and who wants to be skeptical about it. And I could be skeptical about it in other ways. Like, you know, I think a lot of the people who are there maybe are a bit too patty with the developer or something, but like this is all like I think a learning process as part of it. But I find it really interesting, and I guess that's what I wanted to sort of communicate about the whole endeavor, was that like there is this massive sea change, but I think it benefits gamers mostly. The game playing audience now, it was always a thing. When I was reading magazines and going to websites, I liked certain people. Like I've mentioned people, I would go to writers and I go, oh, I like Jeff stuff, oh, I like Kevin Van Ord stuff, oh, I like Kieran Gillen's writing. I still remember his Deus Ex review. It's like one of the best fucking reviews I've ever read in my life. And what's happened now is we've basically broken down that sort of initial barrier of, oh, this is a massive organization, and people are trusting big organizations a lot less, because there is this massive influx of freelancers who are basically, you can empathize with them in the same way that, hey, look, this is me talking to you on a fucking camera. This is probably a lot less, you know, a lot more trustworthy and a lot less pretentious than when I do episodes of The Point and it's scripted. Like that's why I don't edit these videos as well. So like I think that's a really important part of it. I think the one thing that I would say, and I don't want to like taint this video by like being negative Nancy right at the end of it, but the one thing I would say is that I do still think that there are aspects of that institutional knowledge, especially in relation to like keeping professional distance from people, that a lot of those folks don't really understand yet. So you had like a lot of the streamers like being patty with the PR, which is normal. Like I tend to not do that too much. Like I have a very professional relationship with PR people. Like I'll talk to them and like be very thankful to them, but we don't tend to like chew the fat a lot, especially not when I'm working. Like if I'm at that event, I'm working, I've got 3 hours to get as much as I want, I find out as much as I can about it. And like they all went off for a big dinner with all the YouTubers and streamers afterwards, and a couple of the sites, me and Andy just fucked back because we needed to be editing stuff on Wednesday morning. But like there were aspects of that, like a lot of people talking to the PR people and like getting chatty and like talking about talking about their business, like their YouTube stream, and like how it works and how it doesn't. And like I get the idea behind that is because they basically want to sell themselves to the PR so that they get access. And that's like, that's a difficult thing because that's like, we don't have to do that. We have a sales department. I'm not involved. I never know where the fuck advertising money is coming from. I don't have to sell that to anyone. Like, if I want to sell something to somebody, I show them video features we've done and being like, hey, we want to cover your game. This is something I've done before. So the idea of like getting into those conversations about traffic and reach and all that sort of stuff is like, I think that to me that's a little bit of like getting into a little funny area. And the other thing that I want to talk about though, the other sort of positive side of that is that there were some streamers there who were fucking good. And I mean fucking good at games and good at covering games as well. And is it Elohim? I can't pronounce his name. Elohim. That dude was running train on everyone the whole weekend. And he seemed to be like pretty much, okay, I'm going to work this thing. I'm going to spend like 3 hours playing this game. And he did a stream with Blizzard the day after or on Thursday, which I watched. I think it was Thursday. Yeah, it was Thursday. Which was at Blizzard. And he was good at pointing out, this isn't paid for by Blizzard, this is me. And he was also like asking questions to the developers in a professional way. So I do think there are people, like, there's this thing that people do, especially in the enthusiast game press, where they paint all streamers and all YouTubers. And like, I was fucking streaming Fallout 3 like a couple of minutes ago. Like, I was streaming gameplay years ago as well. Like, we're all part of the same thing, but like, there are people who like to paint everyone with a wide brush. What I saw at that event was a shitload of enthusiasm. Sometimes people just being a little bit too unprofessional, but not egregiously so. And then a bunch of like people who were doing like a really good job, and a bunch of people who were doing like, who were working on it. The one thing actually I found the weirdest, and I kept this here intentionally so I could show you guys. Although I feel like I shouldn't show you because that's like bleeding into the problem. But right at the end of the day, and I think this is the point in which me and Andy looked at each other and went, wow, we're fucking dinosaurs, this is weird. The Blizzard reps gave everyone Overwatch hoodies. So I have this one here, still in its bag. It's the last day it's going to be in my house. Andy has given his already to the GameSpot swag bag. Like, here, it's going in my work bag. He gave it to the team who basically give away all the shit we get, right? So we get freebies at GameSpot, but you tend to, like, what you keep and what you don't keep is like, if it benefits, like a key for a game which you use for your work is different to a hoodie, which is like that's an expensive thing, which if you wear, it's like an endorsement a little bit. Like, I know everyone were like, okay, look, case in point, I'm wearing a Super Slam Dunk Touchdown shirt, which I bought, by the way, but it's for a video game, an indie video game, and I had no problem wearing it on a video. I actually completely forgot I was wearing that. But like wearing a hoodie seems like a little bit too much, maybe. But at the end, they basically handed out all these, and they were very nice, and like they were like, hey, the Blizzard PR lady, who I wish I could remember her name. She said, this is from us. You can tweet about it if you want, but make sure you mention that we gave it to you because we don't want anyone getting in trouble. And the fact that the fucking, like, it was just this weird moment where I was like, wow, you think about all the skeezy stuff that happens sometimes where people are trying to like get on your good side as a PR person, and this lovely woman was telling these people not to tweet about their hoodies without fully disclosing that they were freebies because she worried about them. Like, it was just, like, to me that like emphasized the sort of angle or the age of these people, or the experience rather. I hate saying age because it sounds like I'm being pretentious, but the experience of these people. So I think it's great that streaming and YouTube has gotten this, it's gotten into the sort of real world of previews. I do have some issues with like the fact that they were ripping up their fucking Overwatch hoodies and putting them on and taking fucking selfies. Like, everyone was taking selfies the whole time, and I was like, man, can we like a selfie section on GameSpot, because apparently it's really hot. So like, yeah, like putting on their hoodies and taking, like, some of that was like just a little bit too much for me. So I think we're in a wonderful place with that, but there definitely has to be some of the institutional knowledge from the mainstream press could benefit Twitch streamers and YouTubers in the very same way that the way in which Twitch streamers and YouTubers talk about games and talk to their audiences is something that the mainstream press can learn from as well. So that's it. I don't want to talk anymore. It's already been almost 20 minutes. The cat needs to get a rub. I mean, like, how am I not supposed to? I'm so sorry I kept you waiting, Mischief, you glorious beast. yeah, so I just wanted to clarify a little bit what I was talking about on Tuesday and Wednesday. And my preview of Overwatch is up on GameSpot.com. That game is really good. It's really good. And it's going to be big. And that beta is open in a couple of weeks, and I think I'm getting in on it, so I'm going to be doing a bunch of previews of that on GameSpot.com. Make sure you check out that site, and also I'll be streaming a bunch, I'm sure, at home on my own stuff. Twitch.tv/Danny O'Dwyer and YouTube.com/Danny O'Dwyer. Look at this. I'm doing both. Who knew? Alright, I gotta rub this cat. Sorry this took so long. Hopefully it sounds okay. Bye!